Okay, guys, welcome to SportsMatters TV. I'm in Ireland. Obviously, Kevin's back in the UK. Known as the artist, a major winner in the PDC. He's brought us so many memories over the years. We're hoping to see him back in the World Championship this year. I think it's going to happen. I know there's a bit of form there. Lockdown is obviously, it's a good and a bad thing. Some dart players are saying it's good, some are saying it's bad. But Kevin, how are you finding lockdown? Are you practicing away at home?
Yeah, you're right, Jerry. Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because I like to practice when I'm out. Old-fashioned stuff for me. I like to go down the pub and have a practice. It's difficult to play. You got your board set up at home. Although you've got to do it, it's difficult because it's the motivation, isn't it? I mean, I like to play against other people. Yeah. It is hard for people to just practice on their own and keep yourselves interested,
Of course. Did you try to play online? Obviously, there's a lot of tournaments online at the moment, Kevin. Did you give it a crack, or that's not for you?
Nah, that's not for me, Jerry. I don't like that sort of thing. That wouldn't suit me at all. So I didn't bother even sort of looking into that, no.
No, I understand. And the last time I met you, Kevin, obviously I met you in the Glen Eagle, obviously the Irish Masters. You took out a nice big finish against Mick McGowan on the bull on stage. It was great. We have to talk about the early days, Kevin. How did darts start for you first day? Because we know you're playing quite a long time, but how did it come about first day?
Well, I mean, it was football all the time for me. I was nuts on football, and you're coming home from school, you're scared of football and off out. And after a while, when I got to around about 15, and when it was like lashing down with rain and that, it was I'm going to find something to do indoors. So stuck a dartboard up. And sort of got pretty good pretty quick. And when I was 16, I joined a local club and that, and there was a couple of lads down there, and we used to practice together, and I sort of took to it from there, really. So I was lucky, really, because there was a couple of lads that were really good players, and sort of rubbed off on me, if you like. And then I joined a pub up the road that had some excellent players in it, and it just went from there, and I really enjoyed it. It keeps you out of trouble, doesn't it? I was darts mad after that.
Definitely. And obviously the Super League is a big thing, like with the pubs back in the UK. Obviously that's so competitive. We always see the names that have played in the Super League. Obviously that was a big starting point for you, was it?
Yeah, well, I played local league for a couple of 3 years, and I joined the Super League when I was 19. I didn't want to go straight into the Super League and it be too much, and I didn't know what it was going to be like or anything. And then a couple of lads said to me, you've got to go and play Super League now, you're pretty much ready for that. So I went into it, and after six games, I was picked for the county side, and had 5 games in the B, and then was put in the A, and that was around about 86, 87. Yeah. A long time ago. And just stayed in there. But I played for Essex for 13 years.
Yeah.
Until I joined the PDC in 2000, when obviously back then you wasn't allowed to do both sides.
Definitely, and we have to speak about obviously the BDO days. I call it the real BDO. You know what I mean? When the likes of yourself is there, Andy Fordham, Ted Hankey, some of the greatest players we've ever seen grace the stage. Obviously, you know what I mean. You learned to trade pretty much through the Super League and the BDO, but obviously you've got some fond memories of the BDO, Kevin.
Yeah, of course. I mean, most of the lads, not all of them, but most of the lads done something in the BDO. Obviously the youngsters that are coming through now don't know what the BDO is. They went come straight into the PDC. But yeah, people around about my age and a bit younger, we pretty much done, the BDO. Enjoyed it. I enjoyed the BDO tour more than the PDC tour in some ways. You go into places like Denmark, Sweden, you're moving about in different venues all the time. I mean, now at the PDC, you're just stuck in a hall in Barnsley or Wigan or something like that. It drives the players nuts. There isn't one player I know who like that, so in some ways, you enjoyed it. There was not so much pressure as well on the BDO tour. It was, a lot of it was, you go and play your darts, and then in the evening you go out as a group and have a good laugh. And that now there's so much money in the game at the PDC. The last thing you want to do after going and playing all day is going out on the lash. You know what I mean? You just got to get ready for the next day.
Definitely, and we have to speak. Obviously, making that move to the PDC. You had some fabulous years, and they're going to continue, no doubt. But we have to speak about, what I mean, the majors. Obviously, the Players' Championship, that was a big one. You deserve so many majors over the years, Kevin. We've seen how close you came to winning that world title. But what was it like, first of all, winning that PDC Major and, of course, the Players' Championship? It's such a grueling tournament to win, but obviously you've done that.
Yeah, obviously I was well pleased with winning that. I think, I should have had a PDC Major well before that anyway. When I first joined the PDC in 2000, I sort of come into it on some decent form, and I sort of was peaking around about 2002 to 2005 there. Yeah. Went off a bit for a couple of years. I was always pretty good in the World Championships. Yeah. I think I should have won the World Championships in 2008. Me and John Park were the best two players there all week. Agreed. Unfortunately, we met in the semis, and John took me out there. But I think that was. I know people talk about my final against Phil. Obviously, I had a great chance to win that, but I think I had a better chance in 2008. But I sort of had a couple of 3 years where I weren't so good then, and then the Players' Championship come out of nowhere. Really, I went into that on no real form at all. Yeah. And just everything came together, and in a way, it was a relief to actually win one of the majors, because I think I deserved one at least, and so it was nice to get over the line. Yeah,
definitely. And Kevin, just as like a player, you know what I mean? There's always, I suppose, good years and bad years in darts. Does it just come down to maybe, you know what I mean, maybe defeats, or is it just one of them things that happens in life where there's distractions and stuff?
Yeah. I mean, you see it all the time, players coming in and out of form, and it's all about sticking through it, really. Obviously, I lost my tour card 18 months ago, which, might want to come to that in a bit, but you go through patches. Some players never recover, and, 1 minute they're playing brilliant, next minute you don't see them. But I've been around for ages. This is my 25th year as a professional dart player now. Although I'm not actually on the tour, I'm still doing stuff, and the exhibition side of things is always busy, other than, of course, while we're in lockdown. But some players don't last very long. They only last like 4, 5, 6 years, and they're gone. But I've been around a long while, and you have to put up with going through bad patches, if you like.
Definitely. Now, we have to go back to that final against Phil Taylor. Many will say perhaps one of the greatest finals of all time. I'll always remember watching it, Kevin. Obviously, you were in tremendous form. Even in the final, you were in tremendous form. I think it's fair to say Phil Taylor got very lucky. Now, there's probably no such thing as luck in darts, but it was definitely there for the taking, Kev. Like, did you find, did it affect you much afterwards, or was it the case? Because we've seen what you done afterwards. Obviously, yourself and John Part had a great semi-final in 2008, so you've always been there and you've always been knocking. But, like, what was it like going into the final, and the aftermath, did you find it hard?
No, really. Listen, I mean, most people would be devastated losing a World Championship final, but I wasn't. It's only really irritated me more over the last probably 6 or 7 years, because it keeps getting sort of brought up about, former world champions and things like that. It was close. I was unlucky. There is luck in everything you do. I mean, I believe that. And it just wasn't to be. I never actually got one dart at a double to win the match, which is probably the most painful thing about it, because I think if I'd have got a dart at a double, I'm pretty sure I'd have hit it. I was on that sort of form, but weren't to be. I should have followed that up a bit better than I did after that. I got to the quarters the following year, but I had a bit of a strange year, because after that final, I joined Unicorn, and they made my darts, and it took me ages to get used to changing, because the set of darts I've played with, I've played with them since I first sort of started, and they were well worn, and I like darts to be well worn in your hand and not brand new ones. So when they were making new darts for me, I had a hell of a job getting used to them, and my form sort of weren't that good. I was okay TV-wise, if you like, because I always played better on the TV than I did on the floor, but I had sort of a hard year after that, and never really recovered. As I say, I only sort of got myself back into it around start of 2008.
Yeah, and like, obviously there's a lot of fans out there asking about darts and flights and stems and all that kind of stuff. Does it actually make a difference? Obviously, you're so used to a set of darts for so many years. Obviously, there's a lot of kind of pressure with sponsors and stuff when they want to make new darts. Obviously, it's a good thing and a bad thing, but it can affect you mentally, Kev, can it? Like when you're trying on a new dart and new flights and stuff.
Yeah, I'm one of the worst ones for it. Well, before I joined Unicorn, which obviously a major darts company, I just had one set of darts in my dart case, my flights and my stems that you get in a sports shop, and that was it. And I played with that, and there's no thoughts of changing points, changing flights. And you join a darts company, and you've got so much stuff that you can try. And I had in my dart room, I had my window ledge full of different sets of darts, flights, points, everything. Yeah. And it plays with you, and it mucks you up. And I've never got out of that habit. I've really, you try different bits, and when you go through bad form for a little bit, you think it's your darts and things. I mean, I admire James Wade. Wade has played for as long as I can remember with exactly the same darts, flights, and stems, without changing, even when he's gone through a really bad patch. Yeah. And he's just stuck with it. And I think that's the thing to do. If you've had a good game with it, it's not your darts, is it? It's your mentality. But obviously, there's equipment that can improve your game, I suppose. It's not like you wouldn't be up there playing with great big 30 grand brass darts with feathers on the end. I mean, there are bits and pieces that can improve, but I think messing around with different bits and pieces all the time is just no good.
No good. I agree. We have to speak, Kev, about the Premier League. Obviously, we seen you play in that Premier League. We you know what I mean? Personally, as a fan, I miss seeing you on TV. I know it's going to come. I know that stage will be back where we're going to see you back on the TV. But what was it like playing in the Premier League? Obviously, that was a great experience.
Yeah, I love the Premier League. It was great. Some of the players that were in it at the time that had been in it for several years on the trot, they were just walking around bored and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I went into it that year with Andy Hamilton, and we were like two kids in a toy shop. It was incredible. I loved every minute of it, and it was so exciting playing in the Premier League that it really distracted me from the Pro Tour as well, because I was playing in the Premier League on a Thursday or whatever, and then when there was a Pro Tour at the weekend, I took so much out of me for the effort of the Premier League. I was just useless on the Pro Tour, and I was thinking about the following week in the Premier League, and I had a bad year on the Pro Tour after that as well. So it was fantastic. Massive crowds and that. It was incredible. You just get treated so well there, and I see so many fans and that at darts. Incredible,
Definitely. Now, when we think of Kevin Painter, we think of box office. Like that entrance, that walk to the stage was always, one of the best things you could see. What kind of venues did you enjoy playing most? Obviously, the match play, they're all great tournaments, but what kind of stood out to you?
Well, I mean, I like the World Championship because mentally I just prepared myself to play well there. I just thought I was going to play well there. Obviously, you had a few bad games here and there, but I always played well there. All the players used to enjoy Vegas when we had that, and we was all gutted for obvious reasons when that went. You combine in a holiday with you playing darts on TV. I mean, not many more better places than you can go to Vegas, than Vegas. But no, I mean, any TV events were great with the big crowds there. My favourites were obviously, I enjoy the set play ones, which is not many. It's only Grand Prix and the World Championships. That's where I have my best results. Yeah. So I look forward to them two tournaments, the Grand Prix in Dublin and the World Championship more than the others, because I sort of fancy my chances more, if you like.
Definitely. Now, speaking of the Grand Prix, I remember the time that you beat Phil Taylor, and I remember the headlines, and it was no shock whatsoever because we all know how good you were. But is it fair to say, Kevin, that Phil's probably your greatest rival when it comes to darts?
Oh yeah, I mean, when I first come over and I sort of hit my peak in that, we was playing each other all the time. If he was world number 1, I was number 8. If he dropped to 2, I'd go to 7. It was nuts. We just kept playing all the time, and obviously Sky made a massive thing of it. Even in the free draw things where anyone can draw anyone, I was drawing him in things like that, Vegas, UK Open. I mean, it's well documented. I've said before, I'd have been a millionaire if it weren't for Phil. He was stopping me. No one else was stopping me really, other than Phil in some of the tournaments when I was sort of at the peak. He had me out of semi-finals and quarter-finals and obviously the world final and that. But of course, there was a great rivalry there.
I love it. Now, we've got a couple of fans' questions, Kevin. Aaron wants to know, who's the most underrated player you've ever seen in world darts? Now, it could be in the 80s, the 90s, the 90s, but who do you think is the most underrated player to perhaps never win a major or, to not achieve what they should have achieved?
I don't know. It's a difficult question now with so many great players around. I think everyone would agree that there's a real injustice that Terry Jenkins never won a TV major. I mean, Terry was such a great player, and he was in 12, 11, so many TV finals, and he could just never get over the line there. Another great player that I sort of grew up with in the 80s, who's still about a little bit, or 90s if you like, was Dave Askew. Yeah. I mean, Dave played a lot of, PDC and that as well. When Dave was on his game, he was brilliant, and I always thought he was going to win a TV major, but that never came for him either. So, I mean, we've seen players who never even encountered. Scotty Coleman from London, when I was in the county scene, Scott was an amazing player, and he sort of had one little go at the PDC. It didn't work out for him. We never saw him again, but back in the county days, he was a county player for London and that, only a young lad and that. He was a great player. So them sort of three people sort of stick out for me, but I'll always say it's a shame that Terry never won a TV major. That is a shame.
I have to agree. Now, we're seeing obviously just before, obviously the development tour is happening and there's a lot of kind of things happening, but not the way they should be happening. Jeffrey wants to know, do you reckon you'll be back on that PDC Pro Tour next year? Obviously, get the tour card. Because obviously it's a shame not to see you there, and he's a bit shocked that obviously you're not there as well. It's not right not seeing Kevin Painter on the telly. Like, we can all agree. But do you think that form, obviously, Kev, obviously the standard's quite high, but you have the game. Do you reckon we will see you back on the TV next year?
Well, I'm hoping so. My form's quite good. As I said to you earlier, I shouldn't really have lost my tour card. A combination of several things sort of ended up conspiring to me, ending up slipping off the rankings. I had a few personal problems that were really distracting. Yeah. I had a liver problem. I was really unwell for about a year or so, and no one knew what was going on. I was feeling just rough all the time. Doctors didn't know what was going on, and it weren't until I had my liver tested that they realised there was a problem there. So I was just going into tournaments, just not wanting to play. I was rough, and obviously, ultimately, it's me that throws the darts, and I just slipped off the rank. It started to miss a few TV events, and once you start missing one or two, the money comes off, and you just drop down the rankings, and I left it too late. Having said that, the year I actually slipped off, I lost loads of games that I was 5-2 up, 5-3 up. So it was my own fault, ultimately. I got myself involved in the wrong group of people, management-wise, made a big mistake, and everything distracted me, and I never handled it well enough to play enough decent darts to save myself. So obviously I went off. The first year back at the Q School, lost in the final. Maybe shouldn't have happened either, but the second year I just weren't really at the races. So this year on Q School I'm in better nick now. My health's a lot better. Yeah. I feel like I'm playing well, so I'm going to give it another bash at Q School, and hopefully, I mean, to be honest with you, I should be getting through Q School. It's not that difficult when it comes to actually, if you play your own game and play it properly. To me, it's the numbers of people there, and it's the concentration levels that get me. Having to it's okay when you're a young lad and all that. You're up there, practice, sit down, practice. They can do it. These young lads can do it, and Q School's ideal for them.
Yeah.
Someone like me, I just want to get on and play the game and then play the next one. It's such long days that I find that harder than the people I'm playing. It's not the ability of the people. Don't get me wrong. There's loads of good players there, obviously, but I don't think it's the standard. I should be getting through that. It's my own personal opinion. I should be getting it. It's something that I'm disappointed with, but I'll give it another go. Whenever we do it this year, I don't know what's going to happen this year, whether there's going to be 2 different venues or whatever. But I'll give it another go and hopefully get back on and see what I can do.
Yeah, it's easy to see. Like I definitely agree. If you were to play 5 games one after another, you know what I mean. We'd see that the way you go through that, no problem. But it is the waiting game. You know what I mean. You hear stories you're waiting perhaps an hour or 2 hours to play a game. It can be quite hard, I'd say, Kevin. It can be quite hard.
Yeah, and if there's 350 people there, there's too many there that wouldn't get a card. Yeah. I'm not disrespecting them. They've got every right to go and get have a go at getting a card and all that. But I think most of the people will agree that these days are so long and that, and it's hard work. It is hard work.
Most definitely. Keith wants to know, are we going to see Ipswich back in the Premier League anytime soon? Because we know you're a season ticket holder, I think you're a shareholder, but obviously they're looking okay in League One at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, listen, I doubt they'll be in the Premier League in my time unless something really drastic happens. We get someone to come in and bundles of money and buy the club and that, really struggling, and it's not good at the minute, mate. It really isn't, and it's really frustrating. Last year was a disaster. This year we've started okay. We're second in the league. We're not playing fantastic, but you need to be there or thereabouts. That's all what happens at the end of the season. So hopefully we can get out of this league, because League One is dire. The refereeing in it is awful, and we just need to get out of this league and get back in the Championship straight away.
Definitely. And last of all, Barry is a young lad. He's an up-and-coming dart player. I think you actually met him in Cork a while back at an exhibition. He just wants some advice, Kevin. What advice can you give to the young dart players of today? Obviously, you know what I mean, practice routines, is there anything you could say to them that might help their game a small bit?
Well, like I said earlier, I mean, the best way to practice for me is to get another couple of lads and go down a pub, and winner stays on. That way you're continuously playing. Yeah. If you don't have that opportunity, and it is like we are now indoors, I don't think standing there for hour on hour is good for anybody. Yeah. I think 20-minute bursts of practice is better. Have an actual target to go for, i.e., I'm going to do finishes of 70 to 90, 20 minutes, and then go and sit down or go and read a book, watch TV, go and do something else for half hour, and then come back and do that. If you do that in them sort of blocks throughout the day, you don't get bored. Once you're getting bored practicing, that's the end. That's doing you no good. It's doing you more harm than good, because you'll just remember the last time you practiced, you was rubbish. Yeah. So you've got to make it an intense 20 minutes, and you just got to go with it like that. It's all about not being bored. When you're a youngster, you won't get bored anyway. I mean, I'm saying 20 minutes there because that's good for me. He might be able to do 45 minutes before he's starting to think, well, you can't just go to the board and just keep throwing at the 20s as well. You've got to practice on there's various things all over the internet of, different people who'll tell you different routines and things to do. You can find them easy. It's just doing bits and pieces like that. Obviously, in the long term, try and stay off the drink, because that's not going to help at all. If you can play darts without drinking, that'll be a big advantage the longer you get down the road.
Most definitely. Kevin, it's been an absolute honour speaking to you. As I said, I've been a big fan since day one. We hope to see you back in Cork next year for an exhibition. Obviously, times are tough, but we're hoping to see you back on the TV shortly as well, because, Sky Sports without Kevin Painter, it's not worth watching at all, to be honest. You're a gent, and thank you for your time. It means a lot.
Thanks a lot, Jerry. No problem, mate. You take care.